hospice one day whenever I got a call and I was asked to admit a new patient onto hospice that had just been diagnosed with cancer. So I got in my car and I drove to the address they gave me. And when I arrived to the address, it looked like this. So I called the guy I was meeting and I was like, hey, I think I have the wrong address. So he stuck his head up from one of the units and he was like, oh no, this is right. So I park and he says, come on in, I got the hospital paperwork right here. So I walk in and one half of the storage unit looks like this and the other half looks like this. And while I'm looking around, he closes the storage unit door behind me. I knew that I needed to stay calm. So I said, oh, are you actually wanting to sign up for hospice? And he was like, yeah. So I said, okay, well, that's like a much longer process than I thought. No big deal. I said, but my husband tracks my phone, so I need to let him know that I'm going to be later than I planned. So he paused for a second and thought about it, and he was like, okay, just take 1 minute. So he let me out. I'm back in my car. I call my husband. I tell him what's going on, and he's like, you need to leave right this second. And I was like, I'm going to get fired. I can't just leave. And he was like, I do not. And I saw her move, which happens sometimes. But then she turned her head and she looked at me. And I'll be honest, my brain couldn't process this. After my initial shock wore off, I called her daughter in, who came over and held her hand. The patient, who had been in a coma for 2 weeks, then screamed. And then she died again. I was recently asked what happens whenever you die, what to expect. If you are uncomfortable with death, you need to keep on scrolling. So about 1 to 3 months before you die, you'll start to withdraw from the outside world. You will eat less and you will sleep more. 1 to 2 weeks beforehand is usually when confusion sets in. You'll be sleeping most of the day now, and you will be eating just a couple of bites or only fluids at this point. I believe she had an emergency that I will come out myself and admit you. And the guy was like, what about that girl that was just here? That's who I want. And she was like, well, no, she's not going to come. He was like, well, that's who I want. And she was like, that's not going to happen. And he was like, I'll call you later and tell you what time is good for me. And he never called back. We never heard from him again. So I saw this comment a lot. I have taken care of people in the woods, under a bridge, in a car, and a trailer house. Just because someone lives somewhere that you wouldn't live doesn't mean that they deserve to die in pain. Oh, and this is what the house looked like that my coworker was sexually assaulted in.
So let's talk about nurses again, what they do when they admit someone at the hospice. Let's talk about nurses that work at the hospital, medical supervisor, babysitter, observer, cleaner, janitor, and ass wiper. These patients are gonna have to take a shit before they die. So let's talk about white nurses, what white nurses do at the hospice. How do they care for sick patients? Well, from personal experience, you go in the hospice, you get a bed, and then you get morphine. That's one. Ask for morphine, then they give you a ventilator. Then every now and then, the nurse walks into your room and checks on you to see if you're breathing or alive and checks your pulse. They take your blood test, they take your x-ray, they do all these tests, and then they give you food, just food and water, just enough to make you comfortable, and then they wait till the patient is dead. Then they announce your death and call your family members if you have any. If you don't, they just put you back in the mortuary or wherever in the hospital where And then they call your family members, and then they arrange your funeral. So let's talk about funeral services. When you go get the funeral service, you need to buy a coffin and a grave. So let's take a look at some videos on funeral services.
Hey Sophia, what are you doing? Yeah?
Oh, cool.
Is that fine?
So this is produced by the follicles in your ovaries that surround each egg. That's normal. The hormone responsible for follicle growth, egg development,
He
and
restoreth
estrogen production is
my
normal.
soul.
So
He leadeth me in the...
see. Oh, that's cool that we can deep dive into each topic a little bit more. Here are my takeaways. That my thyroid is normal because I've been dealing with this issue. Back to where we were.